program that helps low-income families cover their utility bills is now in jeopardy after the Trump administration fired all of its staff earlier this month. The Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LEAP, provides funding to states to help eligible households cover part of their home energy costs through a one-time annual benefit. Local organizations in Wichita that refer families to this program say that there are some other resources available. Utility assistance classes offer people ways to find additional support, and they say that's really important to learn about during the summer months as your energy bills could begin to rise.
We've been giving information about how to budget, other resources in the community, weatherization programs, other utility assistance programs, just a real variety of information that could benefit and impact families.
Now it's unclear what will happen with the funds distributed by the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, but in a statement, the Kansas Department for Children and Families, which oversees the program in our state, told us that they have not received any information about how the staff cuts might impact services in Kansas. But in the meantime, they will continue to process the applications already submitted for this year's period.